Welcome to the Cast and Camo podcast, where we talk about hunting, fishing, and all things outdoors. Grab your fishing rod, put on your favorite camo, or just sit back and enjoy this week's topic. Cast and Camo begins now.
Good evening.
Good evening, Todd.
Hi, Eric.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, just peachy dandy. Ready for another week.
Another week of looking for fish in your flooded rivers.
That's right. It is flooded too.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's going to get worse.
41.6 feet. Just lovely.
So is that the depth or is that what it's over?
I think it has something to do with your sea level, and there's a bunch of stuff that comes into it. But we're at normal pool here is 12.5, so we're almost 42 foot. So the river's like 3.5 miles across now.
Okay. I went to the doctor one time. They said my seed level is just fine.
Yeah, that was never mind.
We talking about something different?
Yeah, definitely something different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just double checking that our screen my screen went black. I don't know if we.
No, you're
Oh,
good.
we're good. Okay.
Good evening, everyone out there in the chat land.
In the Twitch land. Just, good reminder. We are live on Twitch under Cast and Camo. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast or YouTube and you want to be a part of the conversation, come on over on Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central. We're on Twitch, Cast and Camo. Or you can watch the show back on YouTube under Cast and Camo TV. Subscribe, like, and comment. We're slowly gaining some progress on subscriptions on YouTube, which is fun to see. Now we just need the views. So everybody, if you like the show, tell your friends, come and check us out. It helps us out greatly. But yes, welcome in everyone. It is another Sunday. It's April 14th. Fern coming in. I didn't even know Fern Dog streamed.
Yeah,
but
he just started back up again.
We have Fern Dog, a friend of the show, coming in, bringing his community in, which is very nice of him. So if you don't understand the lingo that we're talking about, that's the Twitch lingo as we are live. So we do have a live chat. As a friendly reminder, if you hear us referring to people or asking questions from somebody in chat, our chat is on Twitch. Not on YouTube yet or Facebook. Maybe someday we'll get there where we're dual streaming on some other platforms. Would be good. All right. So let's talk sponsors because we love our sponsors. We are sponsored by Texas Select Seasonings. You can get 15% off if you go to the Texas Select Seasonings website and use code Cast and Camo in all caps to get 15% off. And Eric doesn't even know this, but we're going to do, not this week because I couldn't figure it out, but next week we'll have time to figure it out. We're going to do a giveaway, and we're going to do a $50 giveaway to Texas Select Seasonings website or a gift card or something of the like. So if y'all need some seasonings for the grilling season, be sure to be tuned in next week on Twitch when we're live, and we'll be doing a giveaway. So Eric, help me remind me that we need to figure out how to do a giveaway on our channel.
We got it. I got it. See you later about it.
I'll just hold my arm behind me and pick a number, and whoever picks between 1 and 5 wins.
I was going to say 1 and 10.
Not to getting both hands behind my back. That's That's like being a gymnast. I'm not quite that flexible anymore in my older age. Also, as you can see, we are wearing our Sea Arc hats. We are sponsored by Sea Arc Boats, based out of Arkansas, which is where our guest tonight is based out of as well. Check out Sea Arc Boats, great boats. We still don't have a 25% discount for them, but we're working on it. We'll crack down on Steve, and we'll get something probably, I'm guessing, anywhere between 25 and 43% off of a boat would be my guess. He's going to kill me once he meets me. And, of course, Deer 30, our newest sponsors, based out of Eric's backyard in Kentucky. Check out Deer 30. I think we have commands for all of these, by the way. And we get how much, Eric? What's our discount code for?
24% off.
24%.
Big discount.
24. That's a big discount. Cast and Camo 24 is that discount code. So check them out. So last week we were supposed to have Wild Bill from Texas Select Seasonings. He had a customer emergency, so that always comes first. So we had to kind of wing it, and we called in reinforcements from Wyoming. And we sat down with Jim Bortz, and it was actually perfect because of this week's topic. It's a great segue from last week to this week, because it's a different topic, but it's the same topic. And I think we can kind of build off of what we had last week. Jim is going on a big hunt in the woods, in the mountains, by himself, on foot. So we care about Jim. We want to make sure Jim is taken care of and prepared for that journey, which is why I specifically brought in Rick tonight, so we could make sure our buddy Jim learns something tonight so he doesn't go missing. I don't want to have to learn in a couple weeks that our buddy Jim is missing in the mountains. That would force me to have to drive all the way out to Wyoming, which could work because I do still have a turkey tag.
I bet you'd hate that, wouldn't you?
I do still have a turkey tag that's valid in Wyoming and through the end of May. So, Jim, go ahead. I changed my mind. Jim, go get lost. Call us for when you need to be rescued, and I will just have to take off of work and go try to help find you.
I think 2 weeks is when his bear season comes in. He just told me the other night. I think it was 2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks from now? Okay. I might be in South Carolina that week, actually.
Oh. Then I'll have
Jim, hold off until the end of my work trip.
You stay here. I'll go to Wyoming.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll give you my license and my turkey tag, and you can. No, we would never do that. We would never do that.
Then I'd go to jail, and you'd laugh, and
I would laugh. Yes.
Yeah. But
I'd call Rachel and say, Rachel, your dad needs a bond. All right. So this week we have a special guest. His name is Rick Spicer. We're going to get into him in just a minute, but I wanted to talk a little bit. We've got a plethora of guests coming up, and I'm excited, weirdly, for the next couple guests. Next week we have Dustin Borer. I probably am butchering his name, Borer. It's a very hard name to say, but he's from Servine Repro Solutions. I don't even know if I've told you, Eric, about this dude.
No, you haven't. So that
he is an artificial inseminator of deer and other things, but deer. And I think that's going to be an incredibly interesting conversation, but we'll see what he has. And then the following week, it is mushroom hunting season. Is it not?
It's most over here.
Oh, it's over there. It's just getting going here.
Yeah, it's almost over here.
Oh, well, we're gonna have a master of the foraging, chick of the woods foraging, and she is a morel mushroom master, and all things foraging in the woods. So I think that it's gonna be she's got a huge following on social media. So I think that'll be a fun conversation. She looks like a super fun gal. But tonight, let's bring on our guest, and then I'm going to introduce him. Then I'm going to let him introduce himself. But let's bring on our guest. What's up, Rick?
How you doing?
We're doing. Looks like you have an absolutely beautiful evening in Arkansas?
It's pretty nice tonight. Yeah, I can't complain. That's for sure.
Yeah, looks gorgeous. So for everybody, I was talking to Mr. Joker earlier today, and he thinks I already have a man crush on Rick, and that might be true, but I doubt it because it's not really my thing. But it's okay if it is anybody else's. This dude is so impressive. He's got his hands in a little bit of everything. He is a survival or bushcraft instructor, co-owner of Pack Rat Bushcraft. Great. And I think Sarah posted the link out there, as well as Rick's Instagram. You make homemade quivers, right?
I do.
Homemade quivers. You're a traditional archer, which that alone I think is impressive and awesome. And someday, I always say someday I'll try it. You've got taught climbing. I don't know what these letters mean, but you'll have to explain it to us. Taught climbing as an AMGA SPI for 15 years. You'll have to. I thought it was like a mega spy, and I was like, well, I don't know. It might be a little weird. You're an instructor for BOSS, or Boulder Outdoor Survival School in Utah, and we're going to talk about that. You have a background in mountaineering, canyoneering. You're a board member for Arkansas Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, right? Correct. And board member for Northwest Arkansas Land Trust?
That's right. Yeah.
Jeez. And a family man. I don't know how he has time to do all of this stuff. And one of the things that really drew me to Rick is his Instagram. It's a family thing, right? You're taking your kids out into the wilderness and fishing, hunting, whatever it might be. Your wife is out there with you guys, which is awesome. I love seeing that. So now that I just gave away your whole background, normally I don't write the stuff down for a guest and I let them do it, but I'm like, man, I want to make sure I touch on all of these because I want to touch on all of these. So let's start with bushcraft. For us dummies, what is bushcraft?
Well, you could define bushcraft a lot of different ways, but ultimately I would, in its most simple form, I would describe it as the knowledge of nature and how to do more with less. So basically going into a wild setting with just a few tools and being able to provide for yourself through just simple tools and your understandings of your surroundings and nature, that type of thing.
And we're definitely going to get into that in a lot more detail here in a few minutes. But okay, let's talk the climbing. Are we talking mountain climbing, hill climbing, hiking?
When I was younger, I was a very avid rock climber, but for most of my life, it's taken the form of mountaineering. I've climbed really all over the American West, Washington, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, California, almost all the western states. And I've done a lot of climbing in South America as well, and even in other countries, including. But I've always loved high places, both from hunting and climbing, both. So, yeah, getting above tree line's always been something I've been passionate about.
Yeah, I'm in Minnesota. We don't have much for mountaineering here.
Well, we don't either in Arkansas. I have to go to
we don't. I was gonna say in Arkansas, I've been to Arkansas a handful of times, and it didn't seem like any different than Minnesota, to be honest.
We have rock climbing here, and I used to avidly rock climb a lot. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten more into the bushcraft and the kind of wilderness skills and archery and those things.
Awesome. Quivers. What are we making the quivers out of?
So this product is something that's been in the works for several years now, and I'm slowly trying to turn this thing into a legitimate brand instead of just a homemade business, so to speak. And
sure.
They're made out of wax canvas. It's a back quiver. I've always enjoyed carrying arrows on my back, but most of the existing products on the market, quite frankly, weren't very good in my opinion. Most people are familiar with bow quivers, and there's a variety of different ones out there. But there were several features that I thought were missing, and so several years ago I started kind of slowly dabbling in this, and I've created something that I'm currently calling the Backcountry Quiver. That's designed to be a standalone product, but it also will attach to the side of a backcountry pack, and so it's designed to be carried in the mountains for hunting. But it also works great for 3D shoots and that type of stuff.
I was going to ask about the backpack, if it was going to somehow attach to the backpack. That's brilliant. Yeah.
I've done several backcountry elk hunts in Idaho, and through those hunts over the last 4 years, I've really kind of dialed it in.
That's awesome. Are you going to carry them at your Pack Rat Bushcraft store?
We do, yeah. So the name of my shop is officially Pack Rat Outdoor Center, and Pack Rat Bushcraft is actually kind of the education component of my business. So that's
okay.
Passes through.
I probably wrote that down wrong.
Yeah, it's all good. And so yes, I've been in a waiting list situation for over a year now. So when someone orders a quiver from me, because I'm sewing them myself in my home, there's typically a 2 to 3 month wait period. But I'm in the process of working with a manufacturer, so hopefully I can move this from a home-based manufacturing scenario into a professional facility. Because I can't keep up with the demand right now.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah. Yep.
Good problem to have. And again, everybody in our Twitch chat, !Rick will give you all the links to all things Rick, his Instagram, and to the store that we were just referring to. They've got a ton of stuff. As a matter of fact, I was texting with Mr. Jim Bortz, and you're going to hear us talk about Jim Bortz a lot. He's a great friend of the show, Rick. He's an amazing painter out in Wyoming. I give him a lot of shit. It's my favorite thing to do. One of the things I didn't mention in your plethora of talents, a wilderness first responder.
Yeah.
Okay, so what exactly does that entail?
Well, anyone that's an outdoor educator, if you're going to be responsible for leading trips and taking other people into the backcountry, obviously you need to know how to handle emergencies. And I would argue that really everyone that spends time outside, especially the further you are from a vehicle and getting help and that type of thing, needs to have some basic first aid training. And so there are a couple of really notable organizations out there, one of them being WMI, the Wilderness Medicine Institute, and there's another one called Sierra Rescue International. And organizations like that run high-level wilderness medicine programs that are anywhere from a weekend to 10 days long, and these are practical scenarios where you're not just like in a classroom setting, but they bring actors in, and you're put in high-stress scenarios, and you have to solve problems of the medical nature so that you can look after people that ultimately you're responsible. And so if you're a responsible force, so if you're in an outdoor leadership position, you really need to have this type of training.
It makes sense. There's so many things I wish that I knew how to do and what to do, and I always say maybe next year. And
right,
kind of that basic first responder thing I think is so advantageous, not only because you can help people, but I mean, I'd spend a lot of times in the woods and quite a bit of time I'm alone, and I feel like I'm not there where I probably should be.
Right. And the baseline course for most of these programs is what's known as Wilderness First Aid, or WFA. It's often referred to as a WFA. And that's a weekend long, usually 20-hour curriculum. And really everyone should take that class. If you've never done anything like that, I cannot recommend doing something like that enough. Just take it from either someone like Knowles National Outdoor Leadership School or Sierra Rescue International, or someone like that is a reputable organization that has a history of leading these types of classes. And then from there, there's the 2-day, the 4-day, the 10-day, all the way into Wilderness EMT for professionals that do this full time.
I wrote those down. Well, I typed them down. I'm definitely going to be checking those out. And we'll, on our Discord, everybody, if you're in our Discord, if you're not, you should get on our Discord, !Discord. We'll drop some links in the Discord for everybody to check out as well, since I don't have those off top of my hand right now. Okay, so let's get into the juicy stuff. How fake are the survival shows on TV?
Oh, they run the gamut from some of them. You know, the one that these days that most people are familiar with, that's as far as I know, one of the best viewed of all time is Alone. And I have a lot of friends of mine that have been on Alone, and there are offshoots of Alone outside of the main series, sort of sister shows. And I was actually on one of those, and I have other friends that were involved in some of those. And the experiences that those people endure out there are very real. I mean, I can speak from personal experience. But of course, it depends on the duration of the show and the nature of the challenges, and they run the gamut from very real. You know, it's still TV, right? Ultimately they can edit the show to make it look like whatever they want. But Alone, I can attest that that's a true survival experience that those people are having out there. Two other shows that are, you know, it's more acting, you could say, that I'll keep to myself. I won't name any names, but it certainly runs the gamut.
I would just hate to find myself in a woods, naked and scared.
And afraid?
Well, yeah, afraid, scared. I was trying to leave it vague.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, that, you know, since you mentioned it, I mean, naked and afraid. Those are some very difficult situations that those people are placed in. And I have friends that have been part of that show as well. And the firsthand information that I've gotten is, I mean, they're out there really doing those challenges. It is as you see. It's not like, you know, there's a film crew around them and there's things happening, but they are having that real experience. It's very, very difficult what they do.
Yeah, the main reason I will refuse to do that show is I really don't want to walk around all day, every day, apologizing and saying, it's cold out. I swear it's cold out.
Right. I swear. Yeah.
Yeah, I swear. It's the chill in the air.
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't have that problem.
It takes a certain type of person, and I'm not sure that I'm that person either. But I've done a couple of survival shows, and it was an interesting experience. But it would take something pretty significant for me to do it again at this point. For TV's for me.
Take something pretty significant. I'm listening to all those TV stations that are out there. You read between the lines what Rick is saying here.
Yeah,
I gotcha. Yeah. I agree. I have a true or false question for you.
Okay.
And Eric, by all means, I have a ton of questions for this guy, so you're going to have to tell me to shut up.
No, you go ahead.
True or false? It's easy. It's 50-50. Last I checked mathematics. Only experienced woodsmen or outdoor women get lost in the woods. Or the wilderness. Yeah.
Anyone can get lost in the wood, and in fact, I mean, the problem is with that scenario is you may be an expert in one place, but you take someone out of the context of where they're used to operating, and it changes everything. And I mean, I don't mind speaking from experience. You know, I obviously live in Arkansas, but I've traveled a lot. But you move to a new place, and things are different. Fundamentals of understanding how to, you know, the nature of a map and compass stays the same. And so if you have those skills, they will translate into other places. But at the same time, learning how to navigate a labyrinth of canyons in southern Utah, just because you understand a map and compass doesn't mean you can go the way you want to go. You may need technical skills that can allow you to be able to go up or down, to be able to escape the environment that you're in. And so absolutely, just because you are very skilled in one place doesn't mean that's going to translate necessarily to another type of environment, especially when it becomes technical.
I consider myself, I mean, I'm 44, I think. Been hunting since I'm, in the woods since I'm 10, 11. And I consider myself familiar with outdoors.
Right.
I was deer hunting in the same spot that I had been deer hunting in for 15 years. It's literally a 40-acre oval, and my stand from where our camper was literally 300 yards straight back, and there was lines of pine trees that were planted. So you almost think not even the biggest dumbass could get lost. All you have to do is walk in a straight line for 200 yards and you're there.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm telling you, it was pitch black, and there must have been a tree that was down, and I veered to the right a little bit, and I found myself all of a sudden going, what is that? Why is there a car parked at my deer stand? My stand is in the middle of the woods. This makes no sense. Why is there a light? Yeah. And the closer I walked, I realized I had done a complete 180-degree turn and didn't even realize it. Yeah. And it was at that moment I knew I fucked up. And I said, I should really be more careful and probably get a little bit more familiar, because I'll admit I was probably a little bit of cockiness. Like, I know where I'm going. Not a big deal. Well, I'm just going to walk.
Right. It's easy to let your guard down, right, when you're very familiar with a place, because you may be like, I've done this 100 times, right, over the last however many years, and so you get comfortable. But the environment can change. Like you said, maybe a tree falls down. Maybe it's a different season than you're accustomed to being in there. I mean, there's a wide variety of variables. But sometimes you just get a little lax, right? Your confidence is there, and maybe something looks a little bit different, and you get turned around, and that can range from not that big. In your case, it sounds like it wasn't that big a deal, right? No, you just got to look around. To maybe it is a big deal. Maybe you walk into a situation where the terrain becomes more difficult, it's steeper, whatever, and it can put you in danger. I think that there are a wide variety of tools out there, and one that I use a lot is like Onyx on my phone. Yep. I'm a big fan of those guys. I think they make an awesome product, but at the end of the day, I don't care what kind of GPS you're using, it runs on batteries, right? And if those batteries die, or if you smash the screen on your phone, like, you better have a backup plan. And that's one of the reasons that I still enjoy teaching old school navigation with a map and compass, because even if you just learn some fundamentals, you don't have to be an expert. It can really help to prevent small situations from becoming big ones just with a little bit of knowledge.
Right. Eric, in all your years, I've got two questions for you, Eric. And I didn't explain to Rick, Eric was a conservation officer and a police chief for 25 years in Pennsylvania. Yeah. So, Eric, in all your time, have you ever gotten lost? No. And or how many cases were you on where you were trying to find somebody that had gotten lost from hunting or whatever?
God, hundreds of times on people being lost. I mean, every year, bear season comes in, deer season right after that. The whole 2 weeks of deer season up in the mountains, we have a lot of issues. I mean, first day of deer season, we probably got 15, 20 hunters just on our county missing. It happens all the time.
And what was the worst case that you've seen? Do you remember like a really bad one?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we've had some really bad ones where the people don't come back out.
So they're Sasquatch.
Yeah, they fall off of a cliff, or they're hunting around rocks and they trip and fall, or whatever the situation is, or they have a heart attack out in the woods. But we've had a lot of cases where they don't come back out.
Which is obviously the worst case scenario. And I shouldn't have made the insensitive joke about the Sasquatch, but it's a good segue. Yeah. Rick, you're in Arkansas, man. There's a lot of Sasquatch sightings and when you're out west, there's a lot. Have you ever had an experience?
I have not. Sasquatch, whatever you want to call him, he's a popular guy here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I have a buddy that has a t-shirt company that's all about Sasquatch. And so I think it's really fascinating, but I have not had a personal encounter that I would say is of the Sasquatch nature.
Which is, it's really odd because you would think for somebody that spends a lot of times deep in the wilderness,
Right.
of anyone that might have evidence or have had an experience, it might be somebody like you or one of your friends that is a survivalist out in the wilderness.
Yeah. I have a lot of friends that badly want to believe in Sasquatch, but I have yet to come across anyone that has any type of legitimate evidence of any kind. It's mostly just strange noises in the woods and tracks that they can't explain, but they don't look like human, just big human tracks or anything like that. So, yeah, I can't comment too much more, unfortunately.
Have you ever? Well, this is a two-part question, Rick. Have you ever gone, like, if you're out with one of those friends, like set it up where in the middle of the night one of you all kind of sneak off and you do some knocks on the woods or some yips as a joke?
Well, we tease each other sometimes with sounds and things like that. I thought you were going to say, are you going like full Sasquatch suit?
No.
And of course, here in Arkansas, there's a good chance you're going to get shot if you do something like that, right? And so I have not gone that far, but certainly I've been involved in some just good old fashioned fun, kind of making weird noises and stuff, banging on trees and hollering at each other.
I think that would be the best. But you have a good point. You're probably right. If you put on the old Wookiee uniform, you're probably going to get smoked.
We've talked about it a lot, and certainly, maybe I don't know, maybe one day, but you gotta time that just right, because there's plenty of folks out there that I think are just gonna straight up put you down.
Yeah, I think that everyone's waiting to have that opportunity to clean Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just Rick, since he brought up about Bigfoot, have you ever thought in your whole life you'd like to wrestle a walrus?
I didn't catch all that. What was that? One more time?
Have you ever thought in your whole life that you'd like to wrestle a walrus?
A walrus? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, Chief, you might want to unplug your mic and plug it back in. You're kind of muffled. He's being a smartass.
I don't have any. Unfortunately, I don't have any walrus experience. I've spent a little bit of time up in Alaska around some grizzly bears, and encountered them. And I would say among the like real apex predators that I've been around, grizzly bears are definitely the thing that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up more than anything else. Those things are. I have a very healthy respect for them. That's for sure.
And I appreciate the question, Eric. It does lead me into one of the things that I had jotted down to bring up with Rick. It's a pretty serious topic. If you were to happen, Rick, to find yourself in a dire situation where you're in a UFC cage and you had to fight the biggest animal you think you could fight with a knife, and I pick a walrus, if I can study the way of Rick and different techniques of surviving, are my odds even greater of beating the walrus?
Oh man, I think if you're fighting a walrus in an octagon, you're in big trouble. I mean, first of all, you better have a pretty long knife because their hide is thick. And they're, I would not want to tangle with one of those things. I feel like it'd be like tangling with a hippopotamus. Like that's like one of the animals that's like on the very bottom or top of my list, however you want to look at it, that is terrifying to me.
They don't mess around.
No, you're toast if they're one of those things, because you can't outrun them on land, and of course in the water you're just like a play toy.
Yeah.
But a walrus, they sound like they could be very formidable. That's for sure. But I've never been around one. So,
well, I've been trying to teach Eric the ways of what I call Vex Kwando. My Twitch name is Vexus, And I did a wonderful display on my stream on a frozen lake one day of my roundhouse kicks,
Nice.
self-taught from Vex Kwando. And so, yes, I'm hoping maybe, we can do some collabs. I think you could probably use some Vex Kwando. You can throw that into your repertoire of your instructing.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. Eric, have you been practicing your Vex Kwando lately?
No, not because I've already figured out what animals I'm fighting.
Oh, well, you started with the squirrel, but
Yeah,
your mic is still messed.
I'm
trying
right now. My mic is going through his too.
It's going to his what?
If you will, I sent you
Oh,
a long time ago.
Oh, you did? Oh. Well, keep going. I'll keep going. What do we got next? I'll figure out the audio.
No, go ahead.
Oh, where's my sheet? Okay, so if we say you're going to teach a group of people some basic survival methods, what are your top 5? Like survival. Top 5 things that people should, if you're going to list and rank in order of importance, like you should have these 5, if nothing else. If you suck at life, you should at least have these 5 things to know about.
Sure. Well, one of them I think we already mentioned. That's going to be the first aid component. That's a very important one, and there are definitely specific skills there that need to be practiced in real scenarios in order to understand how to do well. I mean, be used to that stress and that pressure. But most of the curriculum and the things that I teach tend to fall in 3 other areas, and that's going to be shelter, water, and fire. If you can learn to look after yourself with those 3 things, and the thing that all of those 3 have in common, and the core of looking after yourself goes back to maintaining your own body core temperature. And you're going to do that through hydration, drinking good treated water. You're going to do that through sheltering yourself and keeping yourself warm. Of course, not getting too hot is also important. So that would be 4. And then in a more long-term scenario, you're going to start thinking about food procurement, but that's highly variable depending upon the area that you're operating in, right? It could be a fishing situation. It could be a trapping situation, a hunting situation, a foraging situation. Of course, plants don't run away from you. And so that's nice to have the foraging knowledge, but plants are generally very low in caloric energy. And that's the problem when you go to harvest things. And, things that do have more calories, like fruits, larger things like that, are very seasonal. And so they tend to only be in a very small window of time when you can actually get to those. So learning passive skills, both for fishing and trapping, are 2 of the more valuable, important long-term types of food procurement that I would learn to, or begin to focus on.
If I don't like plants, am I screwed as a survival person?
No, you're not screwed, but it is there's an arrow missing out of your quiver, so to speak. If you're not into the plants, I mean, they can be medicinal, they can be a food source, but they can also be a raw material source for you. Cordage is a fundamental skill in survival knowledge, and learning what plants make good cordage, learning what stalk you can harvest to make a good hand drill kit out of so that you can make fire. All of those types of things. Like a plant like mullein, is one that everyone should know because it's medicine. It's a fire source. It also works as it's one of my favorite types of toilet paper in the backcountry. So
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Exactly. We're all going to do that at one point or another. So, there are certain plants out there that really have a lot of value. And if you aren't learning those things, then, you're at a deficit.
Yeah. I still don't like vegetables, and you're not going to change my mind. Okay. Backpacks. I'd love to get your expertise on backpacks.
Oh, man.
As we talked last, and we'll leave it kind of at a higher level. But as we talked with Mr. Bortz last weekend, it was pack as much as you can, as light as you can, basically, paraphrasing. How do you know what backpack to go with? Like, if I'm a bigger dude and I feel like I can handle a 60, should I? Or should I embrace more of the pack less and go down to a smaller pack? Or does it matter? Am I making all of this up in my head to just complicate it?
Well, there's a lot of variables, as there most often are, right? And so your experience level, like what knowledge do you have of the place that you are about to go enter and operate and have this experience in? And so, making sure that you have the things with you that you need in order to be safe and in order to have a good time while you're out there is important. But having said that, I don't believe personally in bringing things just in case. I think that is a phrase that gets people into trouble when they're packing a backpack. They say, "I'll put this in there just in case."
Yeah, I do that a lot.
Yeah, because just in case is going to end up adding many, many pounds to your overall load. And just by doing that is adding another layer of risk to your experience. Because if you haven't physically trained to be able to carry all of that weight, that right there, it's increasing the likelihood that you're going to fatigue yourself beyond the point that you have experience being fatigued, and that's a big issue actually, or just simply the likelihood that you're going to get tired and you may slip, trip, fall down, those types of things. And so that you always want to practice these things ahead of time. You don't want to go just from 0 to 60 in one outing, right? You want to use the backpack, have it fitted properly from a reputable outfitter that knows what they're doing, and talk to people that have actually done the thing that you're planning to go do so that you're getting some real world experience.
Unfortunately, I think Eric's having some technical issues, so you might, just so everybody knows, I'm not making him shut up on his own. We're trying to figure out the best we can as we go.
I can tell you right now, it's not on my end.
Okay. It's something in our call. We'll figure it out later. It's fine.
I can leave and come back. I'll try it.
Okay. Mentally, you can have the backpack packed with all the right things, and we talked about this a lot last weekend too, but you have to have mental preparedness, which a lot of times people think, I hate to say that I'm cocky, but I'm probably way more cocky than I should be when I'm out in the wilderness. If you find yourself into a predicament where you're not safe or you need help, that mentality or the mental thinking has to switch from what I would say normal to survival mode. Is that accurate? Or is there a way to kind of prep and teach yourself to prep that mental aspect of it?
There's definitely ways that you can train those skills so that you're prepared when the time comes. And again, I keep going back to it, but a good example of that is in this like first aid training where you intentionally put in high stress scenarios so that you can begin to deal with those things. But it might not always be first aid in nature, right? There can be other things. There could be just a storm that comes in, and if you don't have the right clothing system with you or the right shelter system with you, you can be at risk for things like hypothermia and things like that. And so a lot of times there's a time to jump into action immediately, but more often than not, it's worth taking just a few seconds to assess the situation before you just start acting. Because often just taking a step back and looking at everything can really help to kind of reset your brain a little bit and have awareness, because in high stress situations, we can develop tunnel vision and we're not seeing the full picture around us. And so that's why it's really important to take those extra seconds, take a step back, and have awareness of our full surroundings if we can. And then act accordingly, but every situation is a little bit different. But what I have found is that if you are if you have an open-minded type of outlook, like you say, if you've been doing it for 20, 30 years, you've been making a big part of your life being outside, you develop a lot of experience and you can become a little overconfident at times, right? In certain types of situations, especially if it's your backyard, right? Places that you
Right.
operate all the time. But I do think that, in my opinion anyway, the best outdoorsmen that I know, men and women both, always have a certain level of awareness, and they're always looking out for not only themselves and the people that they're with, but they are tuned into their surroundings, because things can change, and it only takes one experience to get yourself into trouble, even though you've done it 100 times before.
Yep, and it doesn't take long.
No, it doesn't take long.
It doesn't take long at all.
So I think awareness is a skill that you can practice, that a lot of people just don't think about when they necessarily go out into the backcountry.
Is there a good panic?
Sure. Well, there's a good response. I mean, if the tree is falling and you're in its path, yeah, jumping out of the way is a good idea, right?
True.
And so there are situations where you may need to react very quickly, or if you're in a canyon and there's a flood coming, right, and you have maybe seconds to climb up or get out of the way before that hits you. And so being able to assess those things and act quickly is important. The main thing is that you want to make sure that whatever action that you're taking is not going to end in putting yourself at a higher level of risk. Maybe you jump off of something and to get out of the way, and in the process of doing that, you break your leg, right, or something like that. And so you took a situation that maybe had some consequences, and ultimately you made it worse because of this like gut instinct that you had. But every situation is different. There's not a one size fits all solution to those types of moments.
Right.
And so that's why I think that being having the mindset of being in a constant state of learning, I think, is one of the best outlooks that you can have, and never going out there thinking that you know it all. That's, I think, where people get into trouble.
You'll never hear those words come out of my mouth. I know it all. I know better.
Right.
I think you're good now.
Anyone that says, I think, again, in my opinion, but anyone that says they're an expert at something, I've never really liked that term expert, because it insinuates that they know everything, that there's nothing left to learn. And the best teachers that I have ever come across are those people that are lifelong learners, and they're the first ones to say, you know what, I have a lot of experience, but I don't know everything. And so I'm constantly trying to gain more insight, either from more people, from my surroundings, from my experiences, and those types of things. And if you have that outlook, more often than not, that outlook and that mindset is going to serve you well if and when you are in difficult situations.
Curious, in all of your classes that you've taught, have you ever had, I'm hedging my bet, I'm going to say how many, not if have you, but how many times have you had somebody that you're instructing in a class and they know more than you, or that's not how you do it? Does that happen often?
I wouldn't. It definitely happens, without a doubt. There are people that come and take classes that have really spent a large amount of time on a specific skill or operating in a certain area, and I think it's great. One of the things that I tell students when I'm working with them is that my goal as an instructor is to learn something from each of them. Because I don't care who you are or what you've done, there is someone out there that knows more than you, guaranteed. I don't care who you are.
Yep.
And so I think if you have that mindset where you're in a constant state of learning, and in my opinion, one of the reasons that I love teaching is because one of the best ways to learn is to teach. Because you have these conversations and you see people ask questions in new ways, and you have to learn new ways to teach people skills, because not everyone learns the same way. And so you learn to think about things in new ways and learn to think about things critically. And by doing that, it challenges you, because a teacher is only as good as their ability to deliver the information.
Right.
You may be incredibly skilled at something, but if you are going to teach those things, you know, that's the point of the process, right? And if you are unable to pass that information along, then you haven't accomplished your goal. And I'm forever in a constant state of learning, and much of that is learning new ways to relay the information.
Has it happened where the person's like, no, you're doing it all wrong, you do this, and it's literally like the dumbest thing you've ever heard, but they are adamant their way is, no, you start a fire like this, and it's rubbing two wet leaves together? You're like, has there been those instances where you just want to say, you're an idiot, shut up?
Not often, but I have had a few situations where we just had to agree to disagree. Right, and that's, I'm not sure if there's a better way to put that sometimes. And I tell people, if they're like, you know what, what we're doing now is a way of doing it. It's not the way of doing it. And if you know another way that you like and it accomplishes ultimately the goal, then that's fine, right? All I'm trying to do is provide what I believe is good instruction and skills that I believe will serve you well in the long run. But you know, I'm not here to preach the gospel of this is the only way to do things, right? However you get there, as long as you arrive at the same goal, then that's great.
True. Eric, as your time as a conservation officer, and you've had these instances where you're going out and helping people that may be lost or whatever, do you remember an instance where you're like, this is what you did to get to where you are? Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Well, yeah, because I used to talk about the streams in the mountains. If you get lost and you cross a stream, which way do you go? You don't leave the stream. You follow the stream down. Just keep following the stream down. People will leave the stream and make circles and circles. They get into a ravine, they'll go up the hill instead of down the hill. You know, it'll eventually, valleys funnel to somewhere.
Right.
And people just don't, when they panic, I don't think anyone thinks about that whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I asked about is there a good panic? And, you know, one of the things, oh, geez, I just touched some button. Okay. Growing up, like, I was always told, if you're lost, just stay put. And I think back to, again, my deer hunting days. My uncle, I was hunting with him, and we were, 5, 6, 7 miles into the state forest, and they've been hunting that area for 20 plus years. And everybody, as you've hunted with people, at the end of the day, it gets dark, everybody walks out to the truck, and he didn't show up. And they waited and yelled, but they didn't really go out and search for him. And they were like, he's going to turn up. So, of course, as guys do, they hop in the truck and go into the Legion to have some beers and popcorn. And lo and behold, my uncle's there. And what had happened is he had gotten so scared that he just took off running and didn't stop running, and was lucky enough to run into an 85-year-old guy in a truck that happened to be at his hunting spot. But he had no idea where he was. And they found him a couple miles away. And he said, "Where should I bring you?" And he said, "To the Legion, because that's where those assholes are going to be." And of course, he was right. But and Eric, I don't know what this This sounds so stupid, but when you said that, follow the river, I've never really thought about that.
Yeah,
but as you said it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And I would hope, I've never been in that situation, but I would hope if I was, I'd be smart enough to be like, follow the river.
They always filter into something bigger, and it's downhill. You don't have a river going uphill over a
Yeah.
that we used to have, we would have the fire department, the fishing game, you'd have search and rescue team that would come out. And back when I first started, they used to ride the roads blowing the siren. If you've ever been in the mountains and you turn on a siren or blow an air horn, it will equal something fierce. And it will screw up more people. They hear it and they think it's over here. And they'll leave and go towards that siren, which is totally the different direction. So you don't use sirens or air horns.
So what's funny about that, I'm going to tell Rick, I know what you're thinking. And don't worry, I couldn't hear a word of that either, which is why I was glad he was talking with his hands. Some reason your mic went bonkers again, Eric. I don't know. It was fine when you came back.
Yeah,
but I got the gist of what he was saying,
right.
Of people just think, yeah, I don't either. It's hard to do technical stuff. This is why doing it live sucks. But we do it live. Fuck it, we'll do it live, just like that news guy. But I get what. Yeah.
Do it live.
Do it live. But Eric's bringing up a good point, and to further his point, like I said, I would just hope that I would have the smarts in that moment to say, yeah, hey, here's my fear, Rick. Here's my fear. I'm not that smart, and I fear that if I get into that situation, and like Eric was saying, don't go up the hill, go down the hill. First, I have a fear that in that moment I'm going to be looking up and going, I think I'm supposed to go that way. And meanwhile, if I would just take a step back and kind of think through it logically and using my experience, I would hope that I would say, no, go this way, go down.
Right.
I don't know. Eric, go up. Eric goes uphill all the time, walking the hill in the snow both ways, back and forth. Isn't that what you guys said back in the day, Eric? I walked uphill both ways to school in 5 feet of snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess my mic's messed up. I'll be quiet. Let you guys do this.
All right. Yeah, it sucks. Let's talk about Boss. How did you get involved with that organization? Did they find you? Did you find them? And how does that dynamic work? Like, do you fly to Utah and do classes there for them, or how does that work?
Yeah. So the origin, it's one of the oldest survival schools in the country. They've been running schools out in Utah since the late 60s. So it's a very old school. It's a very reputable school. And it was started by a guy named Larry Dean Olson, who's kind of an icon in the survival world, and he's since passed away. But I had his book, one of his early copies of his survival manual as a kid. And as I got older, I would continue to reference that book for various just, nuggets of wisdom. And at some point, I became aware that he started that school. And I reached a point in my life where I thought I had gained a lot of knowledge and information, but I wanted to test that and go train with people that I believe, or that I was confident were better than me, that had a deeper amount of wisdom than I had, and had just more experience in general. And so I looked around about a bunch of different schools around the country, and ultimately I decided to go there. And part of it's the message that they have, and because some schools have more of a military curriculum, some are more earth skills based. Each school has kind of a different feel. But I like the kind of primitive and very simple feel of the school that Boss has. So I took a student course there, and if you want to be an instructor, you have to start as a student. And if they like you, they will ask you if you're interested in apprenticing. And fortunately for me, they asked if I was interested in being an apprentice. And at the time I said, well, I've got a family. I'm not sure how this might work out, but they're very flexible. And I was able to do that over about 3 seasons, to put my time in, spending anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, over the course of a summer out there. And ultimately, through that process, I was able to become an instructor. And so now, yeah, what I do is I'll either drive or sometimes fly, and I'll go out. And the programs that we run are anywhere from 1 week to 1 month out in the
Oh, wow.
backcountry. And so I will either do, I'll either function as an instructor on a course, or I may do support for one of the courses, because there's the instructor team, and then there's the background team that is supporting the instructors in the field. And so they need both of those components in order to run a safe and successful course. And I will do both of those things.
Okay.
So hope my plan actually this summer, actually it'll be more like early fall in September. I'll be going out there to be part of a course this year.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great group of people. A lot of very experienced instructors there.
Yeah, and that was originally how I found you. I found their website and I started paging through. I was shocked at the number of instructors they have.
Yeah.
And maybe somewhere on their website it goes into detail on how it all works. I wasn't sure if you, since you're associated with them, you do classes in Arkansas where you're at, or if you have to go out there. Do they do a lot of classes? I mean, there's a lot of instructors, and I'd never heard of such a thing, but it seems like there must be a lot of people that are doing it.
Well, for them, it's a seasonal school, so they operate usually from around the 1st of June and into October. Okay. And that is the season. And so they have run winter courses in the past, but they currently don't offer those. And so there is a small group of core employees that are sort of handling enrollment and all of those types of things. And they do have a property that's located in Boulder, Utah, which is the headquarters of the school. But outside of that, most of the rest of the instructor team and the apprentices, they have, other lives. They're doing other things the rest of the year. And then they come in to teach during the summer.
You saying that kind of raised the question. Is there like a summer course and a winter course? But it seems like it could be two completely different. Obviously, it's two completely different scenarios. Summer versus winter. Yeah. Is there things out there where you can go do like a winter survival course? Does that exist?
Oh, yeah, very much so. And then some of the more popular ones are up in Canada.
Okay.
There are some schools that you can do that with here in the U.S., but some of the very best ones. There's another guy that became very well known and respected named Morris Kahansky, and he has since passed away, but his school is still in operation in Canada.
Okay.
And I believe it's Karamat Wilderness School is the name of it. And they run some very high quality winter based wilderness programs. I do some short winter training skills here in Arkansas. I did one back in January, and we actually had one of our most intense winters ever. We got down below zero during the course.
Whoa! I don't think we did.
Yeah, we had a group of people for 3 days out camping with tarps in sub-zero temperatures, and it was a very intense experience. And they got the real deal. We weren't practicing; we were really surviving.
Right.
So so I, and typically what I do through my store is I'll focus on very specific skills and do like half-day classes or maybe full-day classes, or I'll do short wilderness excursions up to about 3 days. And then if people are like, well, what's next? How do I learn more? I'll say, go to Boss, or I'll ask them about what their interests are. And I may have another school, or another instructor I know that that I might recommend for them.
Yeah. Okay, so you have another. See, I have the dumbest questions. You're probably thinking, why in the hell did I agree to do this? Have you ever had somebody, I'm not stereotyping at all, but somebody walk up in a skirt, kind of platforms or heels of some sort, even if like sandals to your class, and you're like, no, like that? Or do you use that and say, okay, now we're going to show you what to do if you are in wearing those clothes and this is what happens? Could you use that to your advantage? Does my question make any sense at all?
I think so. There's sort of two things I heard there. One is like, this person approaches me that's maybe dressed in a way that you wouldn't expect, or that looks a way that you wouldn't expect someone that's preparing themselves to go into a wild place, right?
Yes, correct.
And so one thing is that I don't judge people, period. I just don't, it's just not me. It's not how I am. And so it could be, sometimes you see people and they look weird and it turns out they're actually really skilled. And then other times you see people and it's just that that's not their life experience. They haven't not had any type of experience that would have led them to know better one way or the other. And so I'm just here to help people and guide them as best I can. And then the second thing I heard there was maybe that they have something unorthodox with them. It might be some weird clothes or something, but everything has a second or third use. So maybe they have, maybe it's the way they're dressed. Maybe it's some of the things they have with them that you wouldn't ordinarily think of as survival tools. But one of the best survival skills you can have is your creativity and your ability to think about situations differently and, sort of MacGyver your way through scenarios, if you want to talk about it that way. But learning to, I don't necessarily love the term, but think outside the box, but also repurpose items that maybe weren't made for the scenario, but learning to remake them in a way that is useful to you. That's a very good skill.
And I can picture certain people that would almost take it as a challenge. Like if I go and have a class with you, and maybe you've seen this, where I do it this way, and then next time I show up, I don't have like tennis shoes on or hiking boots. I have sandals, less clothing, and it almost like it's choose your own adventure. And now I'm going to practice like this, as if I found myself in this different scenario. There has to be different levels of kind of challenges within that, I would assume.
There is, and full disclosure, like in the courses that I teach at Boston, most Boston instructors, we'll go out for anywhere from a week to a month on a course, and most of us are wearing sandals in the desert. And so, again, a lot of our ethos and our mentality is learning to do more with less, basically being able to rely not only on yourself, but your group of people you're with, operating as a tribe, so to speak, with just a little bit of gear, but mostly learning to work reciprocally with the landscape so that you are harvesting the tools that you need and finding food that you need along the way, but doing it in a respectful way that's sustainable. Because if you have a resource available to you, but you take all of it and you don't leave enough, maybe the next time you go out, that resource is no longer available because you've completely decimated it, right? And so it's important to not only think about your current needs, but what your needs are likely to be in the future, and sort of plan accordingly based on that.
It all makes so much sense. Eric, can you test out your mic? Testing. Nope, I thought I figured it out, but I didn't. Still, who knows? I give up. And I had a whole nother question for you. I lost track. I have you muted. That's what I thought I was fixing it by doing that. Let's try this again. We haven't had this. We've had some technical issues, but we have never had this issue.
And done.
See, now you sound fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. Welcome back.
Let's just go. We're good.
Well, I thought you had something. You don't have anything?
No, that's all right. Go ahead. Go ahead. I just listening to you. You're doing fine.
No. I want to, like, I don't know. Again, like, Jim did the same thing to me last week. It's like, God, that sounds so invigorating. Like, I want to go do this because that sounds like a challenge. So I'll ask you something similar that I asked Jim last week. What do you think your limit is for surviving? What do you think you have a limit, or what that is? Or it's tough to answer because it depends on the situation, I suppose.
There's too many variables. I don't think that you can just say you know what your limit is, because there's just too many things to consider in that scenario. I mean, I've done 30 days with almost entirely all wild foraging. And I'm not a big guy to begin with, and I've lost 23 pounds of body weight before in the course of a month, on a trip like that. And so, I know what I have learned through many of my experiences is that when things get hard, I have learned when I better start getting help and when I better start getting things figured out. And for me, at about the 3-week mark, like if I go into a wilderness situation and I have very limited food, maybe I'm partly foraging, but my calories are very low and I'm not consuming very much. You will begin to go through these different scenarios where you're very fatigued, but then you'll level out and you'll be at like your new normal. And that'll happen a few days. And I can get to about 3 weeks of doing that. But at 3 weeks, I better start figuring some things out, because if I don't, it's going to start getting real hard for me after that. And so that I have learned over the course of a few different trips.
I would probably be dead by the time I figured it out. Like, like you're describing, I kind of get, like, I'd be like, I should probably start looking for meat. Done. I'm out. Tapped out. I don't think that's how it works.
Well, and the land, only has so many resources, and different places are rich in different types of resources, right? And so at certain times of the year, the seasonality plays a big role and the location plays a big role. So obviously the dead of winter is going to be the very hardest time in most places, because there may be some game to hunt, but typically midwinter is not only is foraging really hard, but usually really hard hunting. Fall is just a much better hunting season most of the time, right? And fall can actually be quite good for foraging in certain areas. And so, spring, summer, fall tend to be easier times to be out there than the dead of winter, for sure.
What if so I'm going to be that guy that I was asking you about earlier, but what if you did it like this? In the winter, if you're somewhere, now obviously it depends on your location, but in the winter, if you're somewhere where there's snow, is that almost a better thing as long as you have fire, you have water, because you have unlimited water with the snow, versus in, if it's not the winter and there's not snow, you might have to go find a water source? Or am I like, no, you're not supposed to eat? Just like, don't eat yellow snow, don't eat any snow.
Right. Snow has its advantages for sure. I mean, as a water source, as a source of insulation, you can use snow to build shelters, but not effectively in conjunction with fire very well. And so, it's certainly, but it's a whole other skill set to learn to operate in a heavy snow environment. It has its own type of techniques and knowledge set that you're going to want to develop for those types of things. That doesn't necessarily translate super well in other places. I mean, I could tell you that, like, if it's up to me, I would rather not have the snow and just be by a creek somewhere and have to figure that scenario out than to be, because it takes a lot of energy to melt snow. And so you've got to have a container of some kind. And if you don't have it with you, you have to make it, right?
True.
And you can do that. There are primitive ways to construct containers, but it's all very energy intensive. in order to do those things. And most primitive skills take a lot of time in order to do that. And that's why it's really nice to have simple tools with you, like a knife and a metal water bottle and some paracord. You can make all of those things in the wilderness. You can stone knap a knife. You can make a burn bowl out of a piece of wood. You can strip out a stinging nettle or dog bane and make cordage with it. But it's going to take a whole bunch of time to do all of
Right. Yeah.
that effort, right? So for me, having those skills is really valuable, and I enjoy doing those things when I want to be doing them. But most of the time, I'm going to take the knife and the water bottle and the paracord with me in the backcountry.
That makes sense. And you can get one of those bottles that collapse, and you can get that right there on Pack Rat Outdoor Center. I saw them,
Yep.
their new products. They're right there.
Yep.
I was actually looking at them today. I'm going, I could probably find a lot of reasons to use this stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of good gear out there, and even though, I mean, I will say, full disclosure, obviously, I sell technical outdoor equipment to make a living, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
on one hand, of course, I'm going to tell you that you should have this certain set of skill. But interestingly, because I teach these other skills, I am not a pushy guy when it comes to, oh, you need to have this and you need to have that. And in fact, I would argue, no, you need to have a handful of really well thought out, well made pieces of gear with you in most scenarios when you go out into the backcountry. But don't take more than what you need, because earlier the scenario I gave about like always just throwing stuff in just in case, that can be a big problem in its own right. And so I'm definitely not the guy who's like, oh, you need all this gear and all this stuff. No, I actually don't think so. You need a few things, and you need to have the knowledge of how to use them properly and safely. But outside of that, I really love the less is more mentality.
So I'm curious, when you go on a family vacation and your wife is packing in her suitcase, do you ever look over and be like, what's that for? And she said, just in case. And you said, nope.
No, I know. No, whatever my wife brings, that's her thing. Yeah.
Smart man.
Well, I will say that, in our relationship, I'm the one packing all of the equipment and that sort of thing. She takes care of her own clothes, and she's an amazing cook, and so she tends to handle the food when we're going out, because she loves cooking outside and she's very good at it. And so, but when it comes to the gear we're going to have and making sure that we're safe and we've got our sleeping system figured out and our water treatment and all those types of things, we're a team, right? And so we recognize where our strengths are and we work together to accomplish the goal. And so that's kind of how we look at those things.
Nice. I'm a just in case guy. I have to admit, it's just funny because,
a lot of people are.
I listen to y'all and you're like, pack, get more out of less. And I go on a work trip, which is indoors, cakewalk, right? And I'm at the limit of my suitcase weight at the airport. And I think, did I really need 3 pairs of shorts? Probably not, but just in case I drop some chicken wings on my lap. No, I don't have a pair of shorts.
Right.
I'm always I get myself into trouble with the just in case packing.
Well, but I think the thing is, though, is if you do a trip, and maybe it's a work trip or a weekend trip like you just described, or maybe it's like a legit, outdoor excursion. It's multiple days, maybe a week or more in the backcountry. One of the important things to do, though, is to actually assess what you took with you when you're done, because that makes you better later. If you don't take the time to assess how the trip went and what you used and what you didn't use, you're probably not going to be very likely to make changes and modifications the next time out. And so, we're all different. And just because, I don't expect everyone to carry exactly what I carry. Some people are going to carry more. Some people are going to carry less. What's important is that they've evaluated that for themselves and that they've made an educated decision about what types of things they're going to carry with them.
Yeah, and I think of, like, usually in situations like this, I'm going to come to you and say, tell me exactly what I need to do and what to bring. And if one of those let's just say it's something to make fire, and I'm thinking, Well, actually, that's the one thing I have experience in, so it would make sense to pick something different if I know I have that sort of a skill, which I really don't. I'm not a Boy Scout. I never learned how to tie knots or start fires. Use a lighter and lighter fluid. Damn it. All right. Well, it's getting really dark for you, buddy. I don't want to. Mosquitoes got to be coming out in Arkansas at some point soon. Hopefully not too soon.
Unfortunately, we're not at this point in the year yet. It won't be long. We're still in spring. Unfortunately, spring is very short here in Arkansas, and it'll be all too hot and buggy here before you know it. But
and we tried to get our trip down to Arkansas this spring, and so far it hasn't worked out. So we're going to be in the heat of the moment. But I appreciate you coming on the show. I was stoked to have you on. It was a long wait for me because I was super interested in having this discussion, and maybe we can do it again and talk more in detail about something different.
Yeah, hit me up. I appreciate the opportunity. It was nice meeting you guys.
All right, same here. And for Eric, I don't know if we can hear Eric or not, but for Eric, thanks everybody for hanging out, and we'll see you guys next week.
Good night, everyone.